Well, for the Bible today, we're going to be talking about Jesus keeping his promises. Now, we know Jesus is just the ultimate promise keeper. In fact, one of the promises he made to his disciples was that he was going to die. Before all these things with Easter happened, he actually said to them that he would be taken away and crucified. So he told them, but they were still surprised because it just seemed so strange they couldn't actually believe it. So Jesus made a lot of promises to his disciples, and he actually did them and followed through on a lot of them. Some of them are still to come. They haven't happened yet. But just like Jesus' disciples could trust him to follow through on his promises when he was here on earth with them, we can trust him now that he will follow through on his promises. So today, his promises, have you ever heard anybody say rock solid? A rock is really, really solid, right? You can lean on it and it's not going to just squash under your hand, not if it's a good rock. We talked about bedrock, right? You can dig down through the sand and you can build houses on bedrock. So when we talk about something being rock solid, we mean it's super firm and solid and dependable. And when we talk about Jesus' promises, we can say his promises are rock solid. They're absolutely firm and dependable. We can know they're going to happen. So in your packet of materials, you have something that looks like this, and it's got a bunch of rocks with words on it. Do you see how it looks like the rocks that might have rolled in front of Jesus' tomb to close the opening? So go ahead and find this paper and bring it back, and we're going to go through these rock solid promises. Girls, that's all there will be for today. So look through those promises. If you need to pause the video and go back and listen to them again so that you can remember which ones are the ones you really want to choose, go ahead and do that. Listen to them again if you need some help reading it so that you know which two are really, really special to you. Now, you can choose more if you want to, but choose at least two. Glue them into your encounter journal, and then the picture that your parents or you or older brother or sister will send is the picture of which ones you chose. I'll see you next week with more Bible. Bye-bye. You're going to choose at least two promises that are really special to you that Jesus made, that God has made to you. And you're going to cut them out and put them in your encounter journal and then send me the picture of the ones you chose glued in your encounter journal. Now, this is the one for everybody to start with, because this is kind of the beginning. God has promised two. So you can cut that out and put it in your encounter journal, because these now are all the things he promised. He's promised to always keep his promises. And it even says here, the verse, if you want to try to look it up sometime. God has promised to make us his children. We had memory verses, copy work about that, didn't we have them? God has promised to forgive our sins. God has promised to answer our prayers, to always love us. We've had copy work and memory verses about that also. Now, on the back here, God has promised to not change his promises. Some of the idols they believed in, they might change what they were going to do for people depending on whether they were happy with you or mad at you. But God has promised he won't ever change his promises, no matter what happens. God has promised to send his son to save us from our sins. God has promised to never fail. That means he's never going to stop doing what he said he would do. If we fail at something, that means we try and it doesn't work. We talked about this earlier this year too. But God doesn't have that problem of failing. When he doesn't try and sometimes have it work and sometimes not work out, God always succeeds. God has promised to do the impossible. Now, boys and girls, you have two empty rocks for two reasons. The first one is this one here that says God has promised to send his son to save us from our sins. That's a promise he's already done, hasn't it? But maybe that's one of the ones that's really special to you. And do you see the back of it says God has promised to, this is the part you have to put in your encounter journal. So you might, if you really want to have this one showing and this part showing, you can go ahead and copy this to down here. The other reason you have two empty rocks is because maybe you remember something from copy work, or you remember something we've already talked about this year that's a really special, important promise to you. And if you have that, your own idea, you can go ahead and write it on one of these stones to put in your encounter journal. Now, if you have all your copy work still, you might even know which verse it is. Maybe you don't know which verse it is. That's okay. You can skip that part. But if you remember a promise we talked about that was really special to you, you can go ahead and write it down, even if you don't remember where it's from in the Bible.